So, drugs were used by Edgar Allan Poe to create his works, and many patrons of the art enjoy his works, but probably wouldn't approve of his inspiration, his vehicle of inspiration. And Speed also got students through law school. So, hello, I'm Denise Dory. Welcome to SF Liberal Buzz, and I've got today my guest Johnny Lorenz from the Drug Users Union. First, I've got a few things to say about drugs. I lost a few family members because of drugs, and I was deeply affected myself in certain ways. Drugs were used by Edgar Allan Poe, and Speed got students through law school. Gary Webb exposed the Reagan administration and CIA dirty dealings. And these are just some things I've got written down. The drug war has really become more or less human rights abuse. And caffeine is more toxic than pure meth. Yuck. And statin drugs cause memory loss. These prescription drugs, statin drugs, they cause memory loss. I know 2 people who've lost their memories taking statin drugs. 330 billion is made off the psychotropic drugs that kill 42,000 people a year. And there's no cure with these drugs. And the number is rising. The 42,000 will probably rise because they've made the diagnosis, the new psychiatric diagnosis guidelines are more stringent, which means if your kid has a temper tantrum at school, they could be labeled psychiatric case and force-fed drugs. And so that's very concerning.
Well, you bring up some good points, and like I said, my name's Johnny Lorenz, and I'm from the San Francisco Drug Users Union, and of course we're based right here in San Francisco, and so all the issues you brought up are of concern to us in one way or another. So we're a group of drug users, current drug users, people who are currently using illicit substances, people who have formerly used illicit substances, and people who are supportive of people who use drugs. So we're part of the drug using community here in San Francisco, and so we're part of a movement, a national movement, an international movement of drug users advocating for themselves, empowering themselves to advocate for themselves in policy decisions that are being made in their communities. And so that's what we're doing.
And helping to change the dialogue as well.
Definitely trying to change the dialogue that society has with drug users. The stigmatization, the discrimination, the persecution, and the human rights abuses of drug users are all issues that are very important to us.
Well, I've heard, for instance, of cops putting drugs into a cigarette pack, putting it down on the ground, and for somebody jonesing for a cigarette walk by, pick it up if they're a person of color, and actually be arrested for those drugs they found on the sidewalk they'd be watching for. I've heard of that happening.
Well, sure. Drug users and the cops have a long relationship, and that they depend on us to keep their jails filled. And arresting drug users is one of the easiest kind of things that they can do.
Risk-free.
So we're a group of drug users who are really trying to influence the way that San Franciscans especially see us. That we're part of the community. That we're contributors. We're positive contributors to the community. That not everything we do is taking away from the community, and that we're fellow human beings living with you, next to you, and that we want you to know that we are. That we have a voice, and that we're concerned about things that are going on with us.
Absolutely, and that we're people that are just like anyone else. I just don't want to be profiled, and I don't think it's fair to profile people for just because they took a substance. Some people drink coffee, and caffeine is more toxic than pure meth. I'll repeat that. Oh, we have a call.
We have a call?
Hello, caller. You're on the air?
Yeah, hi, Denise. This is Psychic Frank.
Hey, Frank.
I was just watching on the Young Turks how they want to privatize the prison industry now. It's just then the politicians are all on the take, and they make these horrible laws, like you say, one joint, and no rehab, no no education. Just it's a big business. The industry is like a really big business. I was just watching this on the Young Turks, and here you are talking about it. So yeah, good. I'll let somebody else call in and let Lorenzo talk about it. But yeah, this is. I'm glad. I'm going to join. I'm going to join the union. Because of my liver, because of my liver, I heal from liver cancer, and there's no scars on my liver because cannabis removes that. The doctors have told me right to my face. The cool doctors, the ones that know what's going on. So I have to literally be an outlaw to stay healthy.
Yes,
because I have Hep C, and I'm recovered from liver cancer, and I don't drink, and I do a lot of milk thistle. But cannabis is what's removing. So, man, things are so screwed up.
They are. If I can point out something, that cannabis users and drug users in general are really, this is a human rights abuse of drug users, is when people want a liver transplant. And they may have been prescribed medical marijuana by their doctor in their home state or whatever, and then when they get on the transplant list, they're getting kicked off of transplant lists because they are either testing positive for marijuana that they were prescribed by a doctor, or they have a history of using drugs, and people are literally dying. I mean, I'm really grateful that you were able to use cannabis and cure your cancer. You're not the only person that I know personally that has cured their cancer with cannabis. But yeah, things are really screwed up when you look at how our society and the medical profession especially treats people who use drugs. By saying
it's getting better though. I'll let you go now. Let somebody else gets through. But it is getting a lot better thanks to people like you and Shona and Access of Love and doctors like Doug Abrams and people.
Yeah.
If you do the research and you make intelligent choices, they punish you. It's like it pays to be stupid. I don't know what it is. You die if you're stupid.
It
I don't
does pay
know.
to be stupid.
Okay, well, thanks for everything, brother.
Money.
Bye.
Thanks, Frank. That was a great call. Yeah, it does pay to be stupid. It seems like the dumbing down of society started around, the media dumbing down of society. They replaced critical thinking cartoons and critical thinking media with this bland, like Barney the dinosaur is a good example for the kids and adult. And then they had infotainment, which was the news and not really the news, and you had to learn about what movie stars were doing, and you tuned into the news, you thought. So it's sort of this misinformation. It also feeds the frenzy too. Just the whole media is stacked against us, so we have to not use non-corporate media these days, and I think the trend is going towards that.
Yeah, definitely. The San Francisco Drug Users Union and its relationship to media has been somewhat fractious at times. We get portrayed in the media. Sometimes we're a joke on the Tonight Show. We've been a joke. Jay Leno joking about it's the only union where you have to test positive to get in. Things like that, which are kind of funny in a way, but in another way not so funny to us. Who have been stigmatized our whole lives because of the label of being called a drug user.
And profiled, yeah.
And profiled, yeah. I mean, some of the campaigns that we're working on here in San Francisco right now is that a lot of us testified recently at the Human Rights, well, not recently, it was over a year ago now, almost a year ago at the Human Rights Commission, San Francisco Human Rights Commission, who's going to one day issue a report on the human rights abuses of drug users in San Francisco.
It's about time.
And that's one of the campaigns that the San Francisco Drug Users Union, we testified, and we've been following up with the Human Rights Commission on trying to get them to publish this report. In some ways, it would address some of the issues that drug users face in discrimination in housing. As a lot of people know, there's families who are separated because one member of the family has a felony drug conviction and then can't live with the rest of the family in HUD housing, or they lose their housing. The list of things that are being done to people who use drugs, and I want to clarify, a lot of people think of a drug user, their first image in their mind is the stereotypical person on the street, homeless, with a needle sticking out of their arm and a bottle in one hand, a crack pipe in the same hand. And for some of us, that is true. That is how we're living, and that's our choice. But there's drug users of all types out there. The numbers are much higher than anyone could ever imagine, I think. And that this includes people who use pain medication, people that that are unfortunately suffering because they're not getting adequate pain medication. Those people we're also concerned about those people too, who are also drug users, and who are being told by their doctors that, I'm going to have to. You're asking for too much pain medication. That means you're med seeking. Now you're an addict. Now you're labeled as an addict by your medical providers, and now you can't get the adequate pain medication, and you're suffering in pain. These are some of the other issues that we're interested in. We have a campaign with San Francisco General Hospital where we're trying to develop ways in which they can communicate with the drug-using community about how drug users are treated when they come in the hospital, trying to make things better for the medical staff so they can get proper information from drug users. Because if you go into a hospital now, say, and San Francisco General is a better place for drug users to go than a lot of other places in the country, but drug users can still face stigmatization there and still feel like they're getting less than adequate treatment or less than optimal treatment at times because they feel like they're being stigmatized. That being said, by developing a good relationship with the community of people who use drugs, hospitals can get more information about what's going on that could really affect the health of people in their community. Like when there's a bad batch of heroin out there, when there's an extra strong batch of heroin out there, when people are trying a new drug or they're combining drugs with other drugs. If hospitals and drug users can exchange this kind of information, then it can improve the lives of everyone.
They would have to. There are some serious problems because the drugs are, since drugs have been criminalized so much, the substances get poisonous.
Yes.
Like with speed, they have to make it out of really horrible substances and really pollute the environment terribly. If they made it out of more pure substances that are more easily obtainable, it wouldn't pollute the. And it's true of like some of the heroin. I have a friend who her whole leg was eaten away by this heroin that she skin popped it, and I.
Well, yeah, the heroin, especially the heroin the common heroin that's in San Francisco is black tar heroin, and it's crudely made, in really clandestine or clandestine labs in Mexico and Guatemala, and they just don't have the kind of facilities that you have like in other drug producing countries to produce a really high grade of product. And this is so how this affects people in San Francisco is that the black tar heroin is so bad, has so much impurities in it that you are much more susceptible to infections because your veins burn out much faster, and then people go to skin popping or muscling heroin, and so they're at greater risk for infection. And so that's caused by prohibition, because if we had a regulated distribution of heroin to heroin users in America, which a lot of people think is so crazy to even say, but the fact of the matter is then we could control what people were getting, and we would know that what they're getting is pharmaceutically safe, and we'd save so many lives. Because you know what? Dead people can't get clean. If you're concerned about drug users and you just want them all to get clean, you know what? They can't get clean if they're dead. So the harm reduction principles that we at the Drug Users Union agree with are the ones that have to deal with improving the safety of the drugs that are already given out, and improving the safety of people who use drugs. Because like I said, we can't help anybody if they've died of an overdose or because of some bad drugs. The cocaine in San Francisco, 90% of it is cut with something called lavamisol, which is a dog dewormer that's put into the cocaine back in the source countries. And this stuff, it's an adulterant. It wouldn't be there if it wasn't for prohibition, because what it does is it makes the cocaine test at a higher purity, and some people say it gives a little extra effect when it's taken, when it's ingested via smoking or whatever. But in the end, for about 10% of people who use cocaine with a high amount of lavamisol in it, they'll have problems with their white blood cell counts. They'll have immune system problems. I've seen pictures of people who got this extreme kind of thrush from it, And you were mentioning methamphetamine. If methamphetamine is made in a controlled setting in a lab or something like that. I mean, a real lab. I'm not talking about Gorilla Labs. Well, it is produced that way. Disoxin is pharmaceutical methamphetamine. If people had that, something that is prescribed by doctors and is considered safe in that format to use instead of something that's made in somebody's bathtub, out at Motel 6, they have the impurities aren't there, and the health risks go way down.
And that Adderall stuff, I saw an interview with somebody who used Adderall as a kid, and he said he loved this stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, some drugs make you feel good, and some people aren't okay with that. Some people aren't okay with the fact that cannabis makes you feel good when you take it. It's the medicine that makes you feel good when you take it. It's not a medicine that has a lot of extreme side effects. And since I'm bringing up medical marijuana, I'm going to say the San Francisco Drug Users Union is, of course, in support of the legalization of marijuana and the decriminalization of marijuana and the medical use of marijuana. We do have an issue with some people in the medical marijuana community that want to say that to law enforcement, why don't you concentrate on users of other drugs instead of users of cannabis? And that we take issue with that because we don't want the cops to suddenly stop focusing on people who use cannabis and put all their forces on people who use other drugs, because it's not fair for cannabis users. It's not fair for users of any drug, to be subject to the long prison sentences and the other issues that come from being involved in the criminal justice system for using drugs.
Well, there's a lot of the drugs we like that people like, that the drug users, I mean, being the drug users union, would like are plant-based, and we're once in the American pharmacopoeia.
Right.
So.
Right. I mean, yes, they're all
before they made these harmful things. Now they made all these safe drugs, which are they better?
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, you can compare side effects between street drugs and pharmaceutical drugs, and a lot of times you're going to find more side effects with a pharmaceutical than you would with a street drug.
And often the effects are permanent, such as liver damage. I know people who've suffered all sorts of. I don't. There isn't even time. There's only like 4 or 5 minutes left, but I could go on and on about that. I've got some curiosities about how long has the San Francisco Drug Users Union existed?
We've been around about 3 years now.
Yeah, and
we're a very young organization, and we're one of the handful of drug user groups or unions in the United States. There's really only about 5 or 6 right now. There's the San Francisco Drug Users Union. There's the Seattle Urban Survivors Union. There is in New York, there's something called VOCAL, which is Voices of Community Activists and Leaders, which is a drug users union in New York. And there's also Users United in New York. There is the New England Users Union, which is based, of course, in New England, Massachusetts area. And who else is there? I don't think I've named all 5. So
Did the cops ever stake you out?
I don't know if the cops want to stake us out. There's really not much going on that they need to be staking us out about.
I thought maybe the viewers might want to know.
Yeah, we're involved in activism, and it takes up so much of our time that we don't even have time to use drugs.
I heard that.
Of times.
Fundraising,
yeah.
Yeah. And how do people get involved?
Well, we how do people get involved is by coming to visit us at 149 Turk Street in San Francisco. We have general meetings twice a month. We're on the internet, sfdrugusersunion.org.
And on Facebook?
And on Facebook, San Francisco Drug Users Union. If you type in that, you'll be able to find our Facebook page.
Give them a like.
Yeah, that'd be great. And what else? Yeah, so that's how they can get involved. Check us out online, see what we're doing. And if you want to get involved, if you're a drug user, if you're a former drug user, you can be clean and serene and all that good stuff and still be involved in helping people who continue to use drugs. Because even if you have stopped using drugs yourself, there's a lot of people who are still using drugs and a lot of people who quit using drugs who are still suffering greatly from the stigmatization that they've suffered, either through having a criminal, felony records and that kind of thing. So we're not just for people who use drugs, we're for people who used to use drugs too, and we're for people that want to support us who aren't drug users too. I want to put that out there. but primarily our members are people who use drugs and who used to use drugs.
Right, and the people who used to use drugs are probably a better support system than any psychiatrist could be, or any.
Well, yeah, I run a support group. I'm the support group coordinator for the San Francisco Drug Users Union, and we run a weekly support group at 3:30 on Tuesdays at 149 Turk Street, and that's I've been doing that for almost 2 years now, and I have a long history of facilitating groups, harm reduction based groups, and this is different. And that I'm a peer. I'm a drug user. I don't use any illegal substances now, but I do consider myself a drug user. And so this is a peer group. I'm a peer facilitator facilitating this group. And so we're able to support each other, in ways that you can't do in a 12-step group where the focus is abstinence. We're able to support each other. We're able to support people's drug use and non-drug use at the same time.
And their choice to
see,
everybody's at a different phase of whether they take drugs or have taken them. I mean, people are at a different phase. It's no reason to judge whatever phase someone's in,
Mm-hmm.
because even the people who take them are mad at people who don't take them anymore too. So,
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't really care if they do that. That's fine. I just say, oh, I'm not against you. I never want to judge anyone. That's terrible. And I really want to thank you for your work with this.
Thank you.
This topic.
Thanks for inviting me. Definitely. And I want to mention about Axis of Love that we consider ourselves allies of Axis of Love, and that cannabis substitution strategies is something that I've worked on in my professional life as a drug counselor, where people use cannabis to reduce their use of other more harmful substances, and it works great. And if anybody wanted to talk to me about that, that's something else that I'm interested in. And I also write a blog on drug user rights called druguserrights.blogspot.com for the Drug User Rights Action Network. If anybody wants to check that out, those are just my ideas and another organization's ideas about drug users and drug user rights like smokers' rights.
We're just about off the air. I'll tune in next, April the 16th.
Thank you.